Hello.
Yay! Welcome. Thanks for coming back for that. So yes, let's welcoming Theresa about her project on the music in the First World War of the Australian War Memorial. So thank you, Theresa.
Thank you, Linda. Sorry for before with the technical difficulties. So today I'm going to be talking about developing the Music in the First World War project of the Australian War Memorial. I'll be looking at the development of the project, preparing the collections for digitisation, and the establishment of a publishing framework to deliver the original project concept. I'm also going to discuss the benefits of the project for telling the stories of each of the selected songs, their history, and the performers involved. Along the way, I'll incorporate some of the stories uncovered about the songs and the performers so that this isn't a completely technical paper. The Music in the First World War project brought together collections of diaries and letters that contain strong musical references, concert programs, and sheet music. It also commissioned modern recordings of 100 pieces of sheet music held in the Memorial's collection. At the heart of this project was the digitisation of these recordings, collections, and displaying all of this material online in a meaningful way that allowed researchers to view the historical context of the performances and literature around a selection of 100 songs. Work on the Music in the First World War project commenced in 2014. The project evolved out of research being undertaken at the time into the Research Centre collection to find stories relevant to music during the First World War period. There was interest in doing something with this research so that the knowledge could be shared and not disappear back into the archives. From the beginning, this was a very ambitious project that contained several outputs. In early 2017, the overall project was divided into 4 phases. At this stage, it was estimated that the project would take another 2 years to complete. The first phase of this project involved identifying diaries and letters in the Research Centre collection that mentioned titles of songs, references to musical performances, or a strong connection. Sorry, I've gone one slide too far. That one. The first phase of this project involved identifying diaries and letters in the Research Centre collection that mentioned titles of songs, references to musical performances, or a strong connection with a musical performer or bandsman, as well as printed sheet music or concert programs which were referenced. A subject-based collection guide for the Music in the First World War sheet music collection was also to be published online during this part of the project. The second phase involved the online release of sound recordings specifically recorded for this project and the digitised version of associated collection items, diaries, letters, published sheet music, and concert programs. This also included investigating and recording the connections between the collection items and people and publishing these online. During this phase of the project, short biographies for 9 entertainers and composers who served with the AAF were to be written and published online, particularly those who had been identified as members of battalion bands. The third phase involved the presentation of research for the Music in the First World War project in the form of a display in the Research Centre. This also included investigating possibilities for data visualisation of the location of concerts, music performed, people involved, and the music itself. The fourth phase involved recording all the research produced in the First World War subject guide for future inquiries and digitisation projects, targeting the acquisition of specific sheet music titles not held in the collection and amending existing catalogue records if required. That was the plan anyway. In the end, some of these deliverables were consolidated in other ways or removed from the project. At the time that this project commenced, the Research Centre was digitising diaries and letters for the major First World War centenary project ANZAC Connections. The initial collections required for the Music and the First World War project were digitised as part of the ANZAC Connections project. This included 26 collections of diaries and letters that had belonged to bandsmen, musically trained individuals, or connections to the role of music in war. An additional 31 pieces of sheet music belonging to Ernest Nichols, a performer with the Aussies concert party at Perham Downs during the First World War, were also included. The digitisation of these collections kicked off in October 2014. Part of this digitisation process required individually listing the contents of all selected collections down to item level and obtaining the appropriate copyright clearances. This listing process assisted with the discovery of the collections online. From beginning to end, given the complexities of some of these collections, the digitisation of these items took approximately 2 years to complete instead of the expected 6 months. Among the collections digitised were the papers of Frank Reinhardt Fisher. Fisher was the brother of the Australian soprano Elsa Australia, who was performing in London during the First World War. He served with the 6th Battalion during the war and was also a talented singer. His collection of letters written to his family is full of references to the concerts that he organised and also references to well-known performers of the period, whom he met whenever he caught up with Elsa in England. On 29 July 1918, he wrote, "There is no doubt that the diggers enjoy a bit of music." Fisher was killed in France during September 1918. After his death, Charles Gould mentioned in a letter to Elsa Australia, "Frank was beloved by the whole of our battalion. His splendid disposition and his voice made him the friend of us all when we were resting out of the line, and when we were fighting the enemy, his fearlessness and courage won the admiration of everyone." It was Hector Mclarty, however, who really summed up the effect of music on Australian soldiers. Mclarty arrived on Gallipoli during the landing on the 25th of April 1915 and remained until the evacuation on the 20th of December that year. He was awarded the Military Medal on the 16th of August 1917 for his actions and bravery in the field at Messines in Belgium. On the 18th of December 1916, after 2 years of active service with the 3rd Field Artillery Brigade, Mclarty wrote, "Inside the gun pit, a warm, cheery fire is burning. For the last 4 hours, a phonograph has been enthralling us. The pit is an inviting spot. Round one side sit 6 soldiers, drinking in the music as if it were the strains of a celestial band. To them, it is. The glow of the fire reflects each face. Their appearance is not prepossessing, for dirt has seamed their faces, and their ragged mud-splattered clothes are wonderful to behold. Each face has its different characteristics, but all, for the moment, bear that faraway look which indicates thoughts of home. Personally, I am enthralled. The phonograph has taken hold of my heartstrings. You see, we have been on the Somme for a long while. It has been pretty rough. I hope I never see another 8 weeks like it. We are tired and just about at the end of our strength, and a touch of music sends me half mad." Only some of the 31 pieces that had belonged to Ernest Nichols were included in the 100 songs that were digitised and then professionally recorded for this project. The bulk of the 100 pieces selected for the Music in the First World War project were digitised as an exhibition support project. At this time, the memorial had a well-established procedure for clearing the copyright of unpublished archival records for digitising and publishing online, not so much for published sheet music, and certainly not for recording said music. A new process for copyright clearances was required for this project. This involved liaising with the Australasian Performing Rights Association, APRA, to confirm the status of the songs selected, and also contacting publishing houses directly, or the publishing houses that had taken over some of the music publishing houses that have now ceased. It was frustrating to find a great story about a song, confirm that it was in the collection, and then discover it was still in copyright. Several times this meant going back to the drawing board. Eventually, a list of 100 songs was compiled, and some of those titles are shown on this slide. The pieces that were recorded were primarily selected because they had been mentioned in the diary or a letter written by a soldier from the First World War period, or were mentioned in a concert program from the period. Others were selected if there was a strong story associated with the item, or if it was representative of the sentiments of the period. Also selected were songs that were either written by a soldier serving in the Australian Imperial Force, or which were owned by someone who used particular copies of the music during the war. There were also some songs selected because they were mentioned in Australian newspapers during the First World War period. As you can imagine, these songs are quite different to the songs that we sing today, but it was thought that these songs should be shared with a new generation of listeners so that they would not be forgotten. Some were, indeed, very much a product of their time, but the majority confirmed that a good song is always a good song, even over 100 years later. Songs like A Perfect Day, which was written by Carrie Jacobs Bond in 1909, published in 1910, and enormously popular during the First World War period. The lyrics of this song relate sitting with your thoughts as the sun sets, reflecting back on the joys of the day and saying farewell to friends. The song was performed by the composer herself at American training camps during the First World War. The song went on to be described by some as the song of the 20th century, with reports that when it was at the height of its popularity, it was not possible to go to a party in Australia without someone playing it or another of Jacob Bond's songs at the end of the evening to signal that it was time for guests to leave. Jacob Bond is reported to have become the first female to make $1 million from her music, and she wrote the lyrics to this song while visiting friends in California and came up with the melody while driving across the Mojave Desert 3 months later. The collection management system that supported this project was MDXG. This database allowed connections to be made between catalogue records, media records, and biographical records. It was also the memorial's main means of publishing collection data on the web, so getting a framework that delivered the original project concept was crucial. This slide is showing the model that was developed to explain the linkages to be made in MDXG between catalogue records for the sound recordings, the digitised version of the sheet music, and the physical copy of the sheet music. There were 5 versions of this model created before it was adopted. The concept developed for this project was that researchers would be able to listen to the recording of the music while looking at a picture of the sheet music and read the description for the physical sheet music. Each of these parts would have its own catalogue record and be linked together. That meant that there were 300 catalogue records. The 3 catalogue records are linked together using a specific field in MDXG and a phrase to explain the type of relationship. The chosen phrases were adaptation, written piece, digital derivative, and recording based on. These phrases were crucial to the publishing framework, as they had to be unique in order to ensure that there was no impact on other parts of the collection management system or pick up records that weren't related to the project when the records were published online. Links were also provided to other collections that added to the story of the selected pieces. This is the model that was developed to make these links. The aim was to clearly show the connections to each piece of sheet music. The biggest collections which related to the sheet music were the concert programs found in published collections. It was known that some people performed specific songs at particular concerts and that the programs for these concerts were held in the collection. These were linked to and from the relevant sheet music using the phrase subject. A decision was made to not link performers directly to the sheet music catalogue records. It was felt that there was more flexibility in linking concert programs to the sheet music because in doing so, it wasn't implied that that particular copy was used in the performance. These were linked to concert programs using the phrase of subject. The corresponding link from the concert program used the phrase mentions. I should say at this point, I took it out of my talk, but I think my talk's not making much sense now. The Research Centre is just one of the curatorial areas at the memorial. There's also film, sound and photographs and military heraldry and technology and art. So they each have their own presence in the database. So we can't use terms if another section is using the same terms. So this diagram here, I'm not expecting you to be able to read this one or to understand it, but is an example of how complicated some of the linkages actually became. This model was developed for parodies. It combines the previously shown 2 models as it is showing the relationships between the physical collection record, the sound recording and the digital version, as well as the related object, which is the parody. It shows the links required in MDXG for a parody of the song, It's a Long, Long Way to Tipperary. This version is titled It's a Long Way Back to Sydney. There were 3 parodies included in this project, and each one of them required developing a visual model similar to this to ensure that the relationship phrases were entered correctly into the database. The top half relates to the song It's a Long, Long Way to Tipperary. The bright green squares show the phrases used for the digital version. The pale blue relates to the sound recording, and the charcoal grey relates to the physical copy of the sheet music. The bottom half relates to the parody titled It's a Long Way Back to Sydney. The mid-blue boxes relate to phrases used for the digital version. The bright yellow relates to the physical copy of the lyrics, and the pale green relates to the sound recording. For It's a Long Way Back to Sydney, 4 relationship phrases were required rather than the usual 3, because it is based on a combination of original music, parody and parody lyrics. And we had to accommodate both of those in the links. As a side note, this parody became so popular that it was published in a Swedish magazine during 1915 and then republished in an Australian newspaper for the Scandinavian migrant community. Many soldiers also sent the lyrics for the parody home in their letters, and these were published by many local newspapers around Australia. This slide shows how the three models came together in MDXG. These are excerpts from the collection database that show the relationship phrases as they were used in the specific field on each of the different catalogue records. And here you can see an excerpt from the catalogue record for the physical copy of the sheet music for the song A Perfect Day. Underneath the image, you can see a highlighted box of a bell with sound and a camera. This indicates that media has been linked to the catalogue record. One of the most important things achieved during this project relates back to the original concept of displaying the original music and the sound recording together. This was not something that had been done for any project prior to this, and it presented a new set of challenges. It was not known how to refer to a sound recording on a catalogue record that was just for a physical copy of the sheet music. Using the linked media functionality of MDXG, it was possible to combine the music and image all on one record while still maintaining the links to other relevant records. However, as this was a new process, this meant changing the web rules so that the newly added images and MP3 recording would show up on a record which was usually designed only for text. The result of this was that the catalogue record for the physical version of A Perfect Day now displays on the web with digital images of the sheet music displaying at the very top, ahead of information and a description of the physical copy. Underneath the description that includes information about the song and its composers is the historical description section that was created for this project. The historical description features information about performances of this song during the First World War and also references the linked objects that mention the song, such as concert programs and the individuals who performed the song during this period. This slide shows some of the elements that display on the online version of this catalogue record. Here you can see the title of the song, a digital image of the first page, basic information about the sheet music, a description of the sheet music, the history of the song, a link to download the sheet music, and an embedded copy of the sound recording. This slide shows the related objects section of the catalogue record for the physical copy of the sheet music for A Perfect Day. It appears directly underneath the sections of the online catalogue record that were shown on the previous slide. From here, it is possible to click to the catalogue records for other items in the collection that reference this song, and from those records through to the biographies of some of the soldiers who performed these songs during the First World War period. You can also click through to find more pieces of music held in the collection by the composer Carrie Jacobs Bond, or find other songs that have similar themes or subjects. The link here on this slide is for an online exhibition which brought together all elements of the project. One of the biggest benefits of this project, beyond the ability to tell the stories of the performers, the histories of these songs during the First World War period, and the stories behind the writing of these songs, is that the project provided a means to do this and bring it all together in one location. It provided a means to place the songs in their social context during the First World War. It is also possible to look at the songs and see which ones were the most popular at welcome home events, which ones were popular for fundraising concerts, and those that didn't really receive much attention. The project has also provided a vehicle to tell the stories of everyone involved in the writing and performing of these songs, people who have long been forgotten. And this is one of those people, William Darwin. Click back to the previous slide with the link to the exhibition.
Thank you so much.